Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Average fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended Clip.
Welcome to Extended Clip, episode 97. I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
And calling in all the way from beautiful London, Ontario, is returning champion, friend of the podcast, the host of the Sleazoids podcast, and online bully, Josh Lewis.
Hey guys, how's it going? How are we doing in here? I like being in the room with you guys. You guys smell nice.
Oh, yeah, I have to say, today there is definitely a distinct odor. All three of us have had a long day.
Yeah, no, I was a little flustered coming over here, a little flat tire scare, amongst other things too. Not to get into that, but I have a lot of smells going on right now that are related to, I don't know, anxiety and fear and shit like that.
Yeah, I know Josh is doing a bit, but like it hit so hard that I was like, oh my god, did Discord just like invent smell-o-vision on Discord? I got very embarrassed about the stench of the boys.
No, I just smell like coffee after a long day of work.
And that's what we're here to talk about, though, getting together with your boys. That's what this movie is all about. We're talking about a new release. And this is, in the face of evil, you have to band together with other outsiders who are just looking out for the greater good. You have your Christ-like figure at the core of it, Zack Snyder. Mm-hmm. And he reached out to people like, you have HBO Max. You have executive producer Christopher Nolan. You have producer and wife Deborah Snyder.
Gillette, the Gillette brand. We got to give the Gillette brand some love.
You got to give the Gillette brand some love. And you got to give the 1.33 to 1 aspect ratio to some love. So when you bring all of these things together, you create a team that fights against the evil that is contemporary blockbuster filmmaking, for that of a cinema of the auteurs. You remember that essay, The Politics of the Auteurs by Francois Truffaut? Maybe you don't remember it.
Ever heard of this?
It was going against this, this authorless, uncle cinema that, the popular cinema of France had become.
Cinema du uncle?
Yeah, cinema du papa. And
I'd watch some Cinema du Uncle, to be honest. Not Cinema du Papa, but
exactly.
Some uncle-ass movies.
See,
I'd watch
Snyder,
some uncle movies.
Snyder is your cool uncle, gives you a beer when you're 14, tells you don't tell your mom. Also shows you how to lift weights and how to talk to girls. And, he brings it home for us.
Eddie, I didn't read that article on Auteur Theory, but I did read Movie Bob Chipman's Marvel Cinematic Universe is killing Auteur Theory. And that's good. My favorite piece on the theory.
Oh my god, yeah. What a great piece, and kind of the antithesis of what this movie is getting at. Even despite the collective nature of getting the gang together, it's also about individual excellence. Because only these individuals could operate on that level, and Zack Snyder is one of those individuals. We're talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League on today's extended clip.
That's right.
Malcolm, you look like you're chomping at the bit. What you got something to say?
I'm steaming up, man. I want to fucking talk. But it's interesting. Coming into this, I feel like a lot of Zack Snyder talk recently, right? And I'm kind of getting fatigued of it always around pro, anti. I'm just like, I'm liking the sentiment here, But so going in, I was just I'm like, what? I have no idea what to expect. And, I was thinking maybe, is this his Heaven's Gate? You know what I mean? Is this like Snyder kind of grand, epic, sweeping vision of America? And it's like, not quite that, but it's kind of getting there. And it's like, there's like some sort of like meta aspect, like is Zack Snyder Superman and he revives himself within the making of this movie? I don't know, but
I don't know.
Hey, I don't know, but I've pretty much kind of confused and jumbled feelings about this movie overall.
Yeah.
I would have to say I'm kind of a little flustered with it. I like a lot of parts of it, but there's also a good amount that I could do without.
I mean, I remember we were talking, I think when we were about to like review Sucker Punch, and we were like, well, the Snyder cut, he has to be bringing the goods. Like, this is the one. And I was going in with that sort of mindset, and I feel like I probably liked it a little bit more than you, but still, it's like, I don't know. I long for things like Sucker Punch and Watchmen that feel more formally bombastic, and like, I don't know. He has a little bit of more room to play there. That his DC stuff, I think, is restrained, but still a good time. Still a big win.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's, regardless of my feelings about the movie, I think, I'm just happy Zack Snyder got this win.
Exactly. He picked up the W in like the grand scheme of things, even if you don't watch the movie. That was my sentiment going in. When I even heard about this, I hadn't seen a Zack Snyder movie, and I was like, oh, this is a win for authorship in cinema no matter what. Josh, what was your initial reaction to this? And you're more of a Snyder head going into this than us, right?
Definitely. I mean, I kind of started out, weirdly enough, as like a bit of like a Snyder skeptic, like way back in the early internet days. Well, early internet for me anyway, not early internet in general. I'm not that old, but like I was in around the time Man of Steel came out. I was definitely like, man, I don't really know about this Zack Snyder guy. He seems dumb. And you get into the posting about it where you're just like, you're better than the movie that you just watched, but quickly that just became very, very corny, that you were just trying to stay all day online triggering these dudes that have cared about tourism for the first time in their lives. So yeah, I came around to Snyder around Batman vs Superman, which is like one of the craziest experiences I've ever had, because I went into that movie thinking this is gonna suck. I'm not gonna like this at all. And I was lucky enough to go to one of the screenings in Toronto. They did an advanced screening where they did it on a brand new laser IMAX projector on a screen that was designed for Academy ratio blow up. So the sequences in Batman v Superman where it blew up looks like what what this Justice League actually looked like. So when everyone was shocked when he wanted to do Academy ratio, I was not surprised at all. Like the IMAX stuff that he shot for that movie looked like pretty damn incredible. And also that movie is just a very weird one. Malcolm, I'm pretty sure that's the Snyder one that you've latched onto the most, right?
No, yeah, I think at the time when that came out, I think I probably saw Man of Steel in theaters, and I was pretty disengaged from all kind of like blockbuster cinema at that point. And so yeah, when I watched it, it kind of surprised me, because it did kind of have like, I don't know, like with these big movies, like there's kind of like this kind of like they feel too big in a sense, like they're overwhelming and like not distinct enough, and they'll just kind of like wash over me, and I'd get like just bored or disengaged. And like I feel like there's a little bit with that with Snyder's work, but it's also just, I don't know, it was something completely different. I mean, something like Eisenberg as Lex Luthor or whatever. I don't know, it just it tickled my fancy. It got me going. And you know what, I never really followed that Snyder auteurism trail after seeing that, unfortunately. But yeah, I've been a fan of BVS.
Yeah, and BVS is one I wanted to talk about a little bit, because we watched Sucker Punch and talked about it on the Patreon, but BVS is one that really took me aback, because it feels almost like two movies split at the third act, pretty much, where it's like it's this extremely dark and brooding and stylistically audacious thing that is basically telling you that the last 8 to 10 years of franchise filmmaking has been incredibly like evil, basically. And like we need to think about these things a little bit more in terms of humanity. And then it turns back into one of those movies for the last 40 minutes or so, which I really didn't like. But over the last week or two since I've watched it, like the first 2 hours are really what stick with me. So I've come out positive in the BVS camp, no matter.
Yeah, well,
what.
I mean, the thing that obviously Snyder goes by, and if you go through any of his older stuff as well, and you read anything, interviews that he does, he really loves like Arthurian myth stuff. He's touted, and if he ever gets to make it, it will probably be his best movie. The Excalibur movie that he keeps wanting to make. He wants to make like an Excalibur or a Conan movie, and that's basically his vision. That when he was handed superhero movies, and they were like, these are the biggest movies, if you want to work in this industry and do comics. And also he's drawn to comics because he's himself is just a hand-drawn artist. He hand draws every single frame, and he loves to. If you look up anything about him, he'll just like bring out like a giant book. He keeps all of his storyboard books, and he'll just show you frames from them. He's like, yeah, look at this drawing that I did, look at this drawing that I did. So a combination of like,
That's awesome.
a comic artist in his own right almost, and then an obsession with myth, something that the fans of these movies always say about them, even though he's the only filmmaker who seems to, on a visual level at least, agree with them and bases his images on that idea. But he thinks that superheroes' actions are big, both in terms of the punches that they throw and the decisions that they make, and that those things should carry consequences that you would find in a real world setting, whether that means, Superman is literally the plane in a 9/11 image, or, that Batman is so filled with rage and confusion about that he literally turns into Dick Cheney and just goes on like a sadistic, bloodthirsty revenge mission against the character, the very light-hearted character in the comics, who has always been coded in part as sort of, like a story of American immigration or assimilation. And the thing about all this stuff is that, I'm saying it now, but Snyder really doesn't, think too hard about it or investigate it beyond kind of like a dumb guy's sense of cool. But when it comes to crafting, something that feels consequential on the screen, he is 100% more successful than most of his counterparts trying to make these same kinds of movies, whether they're thought through or not. I remember watching Infinity War when I went to watch that in a theater, and it was the last time I think I saw a Marvel movie in theaters, because I just left it so completely defeated. When they were like, this is the one that matters. This is the one with the consequences. And then they killed off all of the characters who had trailers that you watched for movies coming out in 6 months. And I remember leaving that movie feeling like I had watched 3 hours of a second act, like, exposition scene where they didn't do anything. And it was just, so going over to Zack Snyder, who, at least on like an image maker level, as far as I'm concerned, this dude is pure cinema in comparison to anyone making a Marvel film.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to say it on that level also. Like, when you look at what blockbuster filmmaking is, there's like a couple people like Michael Bay who get to make stuff outside of franchise, but generally he does, at this point, he's made more Transformers movies than anything else pretty much.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a dire state in terms of that, like, ridiculous, over-the-top blockbuster kind of thing. But in terms of, the guys who we usually talk about, let's say the Michael Manns, the Tony Scotts, the stuff like that, maybe not as complex. As you said, he's not thinking things through maybe the way you just explained, kind of the early 2000s America and 9/11 and its response allegory that's so easy to read into BVS. But I also think that's one of his strengths, is he allows the audience to project so many different things onto these grand myths that he's portraying. Like, I think Watchmen is a good example. I think a lot of the critique of Watchmen I've seen are from big Watchmen fans, fans of the graphic novel, who, despite Snyder modeling his storyboards after comic panels from the Watchmen, they're mad at, how he interprets the material, its hollowness. In my opinion, when I saw Watchmen, I completely read it as, this anti-vigilante kind of thing, where it's this very pessimistic film about, this alternate future of just right-wing extremism, you know, from the point of making the big blue guy win Vietnam for us, like onward.
Well, that defines his approach to all of these characters just in general. Like every character he does, Superman in Batman v Superman is a riff on Dr. Manhattan, and in this he actually does a little bit of Dr. Manhattan in the character of Cyborg as well. This sort of idea of sort of like someone who is all powerful and is, you know, feels a sort of distancing effect by that, and obviously created by sort of like this freak accident as well. But yeah, no, you're right. Watchmen is kind of like the key, I think, and usually it's one of my recommendations when I tell people who are going to start approaching Zack Snyder as an overall project or an author, that honestly, every single interest he has can basically be found in both that story and, you know, what he did with the story.
Well, I feel like in terms of relating it to like purely like comic book cinema, like Watchmen and the Justice League, I think have a really thorough understanding of like comic book. I mean, aside from the visual style, which I think like pops and is distinct, like still images in a comic panel, but the way he structures it, how it's both like big in serial in scope, but also has time for like more episodic moments where you venture off into little courses. Like with Justice League in particular, I think dividing it into chapters and then being able to have all these different offshoots, it does have that like comic book sensibility that I think, like, I don't know, you compare it to Marvel and that's like, I don't know, it feels like it's more television. It's not aping like comic book style in any sense. Like in Justice League and BVS, when there are those like Iraq War Batman sort of flashes in like the post-apocalyptic world, like that's so comic booky and like cool in that sense, because it's just I don't know, a little glimpse of an alternate future.
Yeah, exactly. It's a superhero that is a drone strike, you know. It's an Obama double tap, you know.
You know, another thing I like, I recognize this in BVS maybe a little bit more than the new Justice League cut, but like if Snyder doesn't quite interrogate these figures so well, he likes to idolize them, or like he likes to use their iconography in a way that, like, I don't know, it kind of just reminds me of like the most famous people in the world, and kind of like he has like like I feel like Snyder has like an interest in, like, I don't know, someone like I guess, you know, like Michael Jackson, you know, aside from, you know, other stuff, but like just
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, yeah, that's a better one. That's a
better one. He's made
no
a
strings
movie
attached.
About him.
No strings attached.
Fuck them kids.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, I think that's like, Snyder would rather make a statue to a subject rather than kind of dissect it, and like I
think he's very interested in the questions that arise from making a statue of a subject.
That's true too, yeah.
Because when Superman comes back in Zack Snyder's Justice League and is confused and is fighting the Justice League, he's doing it at his version of a 9/11 monument. Like it's a monument that Amy Adams goes to cry at, so you assume it's like, oh, you know, rip Superman, but it's just like all the people who died in the superhero fight are the ones whose name are on the memorial, you know?
Yeah, they also leave his decapitated head of his statue laying there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you said about iconography, also, I wanted to tag one last thing before we go into this film proper. The opening credits of Watchmen, I think, is all about that. Like the Kennedy assassination, and you even see the second shooter on the grassy knoll. But that image stuck with me almost as much as anything in Watchmen. And it's like detached from the rest of what follows for 3 hours, even in a different aspect ratio. I guess if you watch the director's cut open matte of Watchmen, it goes to scope for that opening credit sequence. That's 10 minutes. And then it goes back up to the full frame for IMAX stuff, I guess. I don't know. Speaking of aspect ratios, you look at some of the shots in this movie and you think, oh boy, how did they crop this down to 1.85? And then you find the shot from Joss Whedon's, almost called him Justin Whedon. You find the shot from Justin Whedon's Snyder cut, and
Joss Whedon's Snyder. You need a Whedon cut of the Snyder cut.
the Justin Whedon Snyder cut, and it's so ugly. It goes beyond televisual. It's just like a crop job, and beyond the fact that the post-production color work is like just a completely different approach.
Yeah, they literally just crank that saturation up and that exposure up like digitally. It looks really garish.
Yeah, it's really funny because there's certain colors that just like don't exist too. Like people maybe rightfully made fun of this one line reading in the scene we just referenced right after Superman's resurrection of Gal Gadot saying Kal-El no. Yeah. Pretty funny. She sucks. Whatever. It's part of the package. You sign up for that. She sucks at acting. But
he makes her look like a way better actor than she does in her own movies.
Well, yeah, that too. But there are also just like colors in the original one that do not exist in that frame whatsoever. Like it's so funny how different it is. And also, of course, the composition's ridiculous. It looks like how when they cropped The Simpsons or Seinfeld or whatever, it's just like so much is missing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I really liked the idea to switch it to Academy ratio. Obviously, I already said that I kind of had an idea that was the direction that he was going in, because he experimented with shooting it with Batman v Superman for just the IMAX stuff and just opened it up during those specific sequences. But he loved the way that stuff looked, and I mean, especially when you watched, for example, like the nightmare sequence in Batman vs Superman, when Batman's having this apocalyptic premonition of an evil Superman. And there's this incredible wonder as he's beating up like the Superman fascist army or whatever, just before Superman comes in and starts just like shredding people with his laser vision, because as always with Zack Snyder's movies, his idea of superpowered violence is very, very horrific. And I think something that people always kind of clock as kind of like immature, and maybe on some level it is, but I always find it like shocking, especially just in comparison to what we frequently get out of these movies. And some of the violence in here is also very kind of gruesome and bloody. But the choice to go with the Academy ratio, and people were kind of laughing at his reasoning behind it, where he was just like, well, heroes frequently I shoot them and they're vertical, and I don't really want to turn the camera to capture that. I liked the way that they looked. And to his credit, I think that large portions of what he shoots here really do make these superhero characters like tower. Like they feel really, really huge, even in his images that they're very CG heavy. And yes, he has a music video stylist kind of sensibilities, which means his Spotify playlists frequently make their way into the film while he's doing it. But I gotta tell you, when he does those musical interludes, like Aquaman ripping his shirt off to Nick Cave while he becomes one with the elemental storm, I find on an image level that is kind of stirring to see in an expensive movie, and interesting that we would even just get time to do that. That's, I think, even more impressive when we're talking about, maybe the duration of it, but there are sequences in here that actually breathe and take time and invite you into, even if it's just characters talking to each other, that they kind of feel like people sometimes, which is nice.
Yeah. I will say what I said about the aspect ratio maybe doesn't extend to every single shot, because I know that he didn't shoot every single thing in 4:3 on the set. That has to be correct, because I know he talked about a 1:6:6 cut. There's also a 1:4:3 thing that was mentioned. I think that's the IMAX ratio.
Yes.
But regardless, it's like an open matte format that he shot, and the 1.85 is more of a crop than the 4:3, But regardless, I would say it runs into some clunky framing maybe 4 or 5 times in 4 fucking hours. Like otherwise
Yeah.
it feels like it's wholly composed for 133, despite the fact that it's this open mat thing that he kind of, you know, got the best ratio out of. And I think that like maybe some of the textures themselves don't look as great as they do in like Batman vs Superman or Watchmen. And I think that does have to do with at least Watchmen being shot for the most part on physical sets, and not just, you know, backdrops, other than 2 major backdrops in that movie, obviously, CG backdrops. This movie, maybe I get a little lost in the textures of the CG design, but I think the actual framing and movement, what he's doing with the camera, is just kind of ridiculous from start to finish.
I think the 4-3 kind of helps make some of those CGI landscapes a little bit more watchable too, because at least in my opinion, just kind of comparing for what I remember, you know, because I saw the original. I was so high off of BVS Fever. I was like, all right, I can't wait to see Justice League in 2017.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, it's like some of these battle scenes, especially one with the metal guy. What's the metal guy's name again?
Cyborg?
No.
Oh, the
Cyborg.
bad guy?
The bad guy.
That looks like the Dark
Steppenwolf?
Side.
Steppenwolf. Yeah.
Do you know that skate company? Like, I think it's called Dark Side, that has like a devil guy for his
Oh,
logo.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
that guy. Yeah.
Well, like some of like the more Steppenwolf world heavy scenes, it's like these huge, like, I don't know, just like very vast compositions with like a lot of like CG characters going on, and like I kind of would like just get lost in these images in a bad way. Like there'd just be nothing quite interesting to look at, so it just kind of became a wash. And that's still, with some of these scenes, I still think that's a problem, but I think the 4-3 just makes it's more of a choice in a sense. So like,
yeah, I mean, this movie suffers, I think, in part from, you know, the same thing that all of these movies suffer from, is that, you know, whether you're, you know, the trying to be the Michael Cimino of them, you are still shooting, you know, CG muscled monsters talking about boxes for like an hour of your movie. That's just, you know, that's
absolutely.
It's part of the process of kind of like what you have to do. And I will say that maybe I just, you know, was able to warm up to them because I do remember, like Malcolm, seeing the Whedon Justice League, but some of the sequences, because when I saw that movie, I was able to clock that the keep it moving sequence where they're trying to, you know, all of the people on whatever Wonder Woman's island are trying to keep the box out of the hands of the big CG guy. That sequence and the evil Superman sequence were like the only 2 sequences that I was like, okay, I feel like those felt like Snyder set pieces to me, like through and through. And the version that he does in this, of that keep it moving sequence, for example, something about just the way that, you know, they kind of cut it, they kind of ruined some of the rhythms of it. And obviously Whedon, part of the project of bringing him in was to entirely shift the tone of it to something that kind of felt a little bit lighter, whereas in Snyder's version here, it really is almost its own little like mini Amazonian 300 that he does. Like, it is all opera and tragedy, as like Steppenwolf with his big axe is literally chopping these women in half, and they're all like crying and being like, we got to keep that box moving forward. And you get a sense of not only just the danger of obviously what they're up against, and obviously because part of Snyder's entire project is that, you know, you have some semblance of the visceral power that both the heroes have, and also, you know, like what's kind of what they're unleashing on people, and also what's coming to get them. And yeah, I mean, shit, watching Steppenwolf, I this time around, you know, I found him kind of physically imposing when he like threw horses around and shit. I was like, what the hell?
No, I mean, I generally liked the action scenes with the Amazonians. It's easy to get lost in it a little bit, but I think Snyder is good enough at like directing and I guess in CG designing the background action to where it's like if you look past what he's focusing on, there is still like, you know, good action going on. It's not. It seems like it's easy to get lost in the slop, as it were, like it is in some scenes. But I think that one is very good. But what follows then, like you have Steppenwolf, talking to, I guess, Darkseid. That's his
those,
boss.
Those are the ones
Yeah.
I'm talking about more
When
so
you-
than the
it's-
Amazonian sequence.
It's
For
the
sure.
yeah.
worst shit because it's just like, Lucas was able to pull this off magnificently in the prequels, where it's just like, aliens talking to each other in a CG background in shot reverse shot, and it's somehow compelling. Here you even have those classic CGI floaties that like you don't know what they are. There's just like floating specks all over the place, and you're like, is that texture? I don't really know what that is. And he's just talking to his boss, and it's like, whether he's a bad guy or like an alien, like I don't really need to see him talking to his boss for 10 minutes.
And it's like, there's I don't know, there's no like emotional payoff to all that talk. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, those scenes are just like, I feel like the constraints of doing superhero stuff, like I think you mentioned earlier, Josh, it like I don't know, that like plotty weight to it I think bogs it down the most, as opposed to when you're like getting the sort of fun individual superhero stories.
Here's an Easter egg for some cinephiles.
And if you're watching this movie, we know you love cinematic Easter eggs.
When Amy Adams goes to get coffee in the beginning, it's raining outside, and she goes to a coffee shop that's called Fred and Ginger Coffee. And it's like she's going to bust out to Singing in the Rain or something like that.
Yeah, and Zack Snyder is in that coffee shop in that shot.
What?
Ooh,
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Just a little Easter egg
I
for
would
the
have thought
fans.
maybe that was just. Actually, I just thought that was Clark Kent.
Snyder stirring up his coffee a little bit. I like that. I like that to think about that.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you know one thing that we should mention is that pretty much cause right away when I first turned this movie on, I thought I was gonna love it even more than I did, because the opening is actually kind of incredible. And very different, like in comparison to the Whedon one, which they open on like Snapchat footage of Superman being like, I like saving children. And obviously he's got like that, that upper lip thing going on. But then there's like this sort of downbeat montage of just how the world would react to the death of Superman. And it's all this corny shit, like the newspaper headlines and being like, where have all of our heroes gone? And it's Superman beside like David Bowie and like Prince and stuff like that. Just stuff that
Democracy
and
dies
that's
in
like the
darkness.
opening
Oh,
credits.
dude, that's sick. Dude, oh my God. Prince is up there and Superman comes through. He's like, you just got here. And then David Bowie and
RBG.
RBG are there. They're chilling. They're dabbing.
Yeah, like that stuff
John
is
Candy.
so brutal. And so watching this and the first image
Vic Morrow.
just being an intense close-up of the bloody spear going through Superman's chest, this just ugly Christ-like spear wound, and the camera just twirling around in slow motion while his screams are just reverberating like through the entire universe. It's just like that to me. I was like, okay, this is what I'm here for Snyder.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really incredible imagery in part one. Part one, and we should say it's divided into chapters. And part one, after the opening 9-minute classic Snyder opening credit sequence in slow motion, silent over music, don't count on it, Batman. We have Aquaman taking off his shirt but keeping on his jeans before jumping into the water. Which is always a classic thing. He joins Christian Bale from Knight of Cups in our extended clip canon of guys who go into the beach with their jeans on, go into the ocean at the beach with their jeans on. But then, you have Batman, Ben Affleck, rather, talking about, needing to recruit people and whatever mumbo jumbo superhero bullshit's going on. But there's this really beautiful shot of him at an airstrip framed by a wheel of another airplane that's, 100 yards out or whatever. And I don't know, there's just like small moments like that where it's like, oh, if only Zack Snyder was just making like a sleek action movie with some of these guys in it, because right after that, there's that bank robbery in London that Wonder Woman intervenes upon. And, even if, she spouts some corny lines or whatever, like that set piece is pretty fucking incredible. It's very sleek, and I don't know. I really liked the setting of that, the use of the kids just as a crowd, just like, fuck these kids. Let's get 20 of them in a room and like use them as a collective hostage.
No, I from the like original cut, like I don't remember that scene being that impressive. Like I love how like it starts with kind of like the focus on the suitcase as we're just going through the bank. You got a lot of like headless bodies walking about, and like the way it just kind of escalates. And I was it was funny, like when Wonder Woman like blocked the bullets with her shield or whatever, I was like, damn, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I feel like in that like set piece alone, it shows how well he's using Godot, because she's like very, very little is given to her in terms of like having to pretend like she's a human being.
But scene's a good example of just how like that scene is in the Whedon version of the film, but if you played them side by side, you would be like, wow, just like the rhythm of the cutting feels like it, like the impacts of the hits are being lost, and a lot of the clarity of some of the space is being lost. Like the frames definitely help him there too. But yeah, like I remember like seeing that same set piece and not, it not having the impact that it does like watching it now.
Part 2, because part 1 ends with what we talked about, the first like attack at the Amazon, correct?
Yeah.
And because I wrote in my notes at the end of part 1 that he's killing horses like Chimino, which I guess is the Heaven's Gate connection, but I guess he's slaughtering CG horses.
Yeah.
And not shooting a mile of film, he's just all doing digital and killing fake horses. This bullshit film. No,
it's fucking male director fantasy of killing horses.
In here.
Yeah, we need to bring that real style back, man. Get back to the fucking farm.
Get back to protesting, getting your movies protested by animal rights activists. So anyway, part 2 is The Age of Heroes. And that's when Steppenwolf has his already iconic line, "It's toxic, that's good," which of course could be read as like a meta commentary line on just the fandom. But there's a lot of brooding in this, so mileage may vary, I guess. For some of it looks really cool. That's when you have like the Aquaman music video, the Nick Cave music video, which is like, it's cool in my opinion. I think that like is kind of like, you could say it's lame or whatever, because it is like, it doesn't in terms of like, it's not like a character moment, quote unquote, that's a very stupid thing, but it's vague enough for you to interpret it as you will. Even if your interpretation is he's a good looking chap and this is a cool song and he's framing it very well. Very centered framing from like that like long shot as the wave is just collapsing on top of him at the pier. There's some really incredible images in there.
Well, yeah, and you're supposed to get a sense of his power, I think, too, right? Because that's the part too where he's like he brings that fisherman in because the fisherman didn't, as he put it, respect the storm. So it's sort of this imposing idea that you need to respect him almost.
Affleck and Godot here, that's where my patience is tested really the first time, is Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck like trying to figure out the boxes, and that's when I'm trying to figure out the boxes too. And that's when you get that flashback to another battle, which is very cool. It's like that very mythic battle with the Amazons the first time these guys attacked and tried to get all 3 of these boxes to activate the super box, which, man, fucking that thing, you wouldn't last 10 seconds.
Put me in a room with that box. We'll see who.
I'm not coming out.
I'm not coming out. Like in regards to like these moments, like Aquaman and like slow motion with music over it, or even like I like the football scene where we have
the football
that's
flashback
fantastic.
is incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just one play too. It's
Exactly.
one play from scrimmage, and it feels like it's 5 minutes long. It's probably only a minute and a half or so, but it's it might be my favorite scene in the whole movie, honestly. The momentum that he like it feels, you know what it feels like actually, and this is a high compliment, is that Michael Mann commercial. I think it's for Nike, where it's the line of scrimmage moving back and forth, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Where different teams are taking, it's like a montage of different games, kind of, as the line of scrimmage moves. Snyder's use of momentum from line of scrimmage all the way following Cyborg scoring the touchdown is so incredible. It's like nothing I've seen in a sports movie, honestly. That's like one of my favorite like sports one takes I've seen.
No, yeah, it's honestly really great. And like these big swing moments, and you were kind of getting at this, JT, is like that's kind of what I was hoping from Snyder. And we watched Sucker Punch, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago at this point, and I feel like there's a good amount of those in Sucker Punch. But then, yeah, you know, I do have to reckon with, like, yeah, this is a superhero movie. This is, you know, the cards Snyder's been dealt if he wants to make these big budget action movies. And also, I mean, why does this cut exist? The people.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is a populist movement here, you know, and it's not just a movie; it's a movement. But it's, I mean, it's, you know, I guess it's like I don't even know if this is Snyder's intention, but it makes sense that this isn't like, I don't know, his most. I don't know what I was expecting. You know what?
His opus?
Yeah, it's not his opus, or although it seems like a good opportunity to go opus mode, I do have to say. But it's like, it's just, you know, he's doing it for the people, and you know, whether we like it or not, the people in general have, you know, are used to like the superhero storytelling style. They're used to seeing Steppenwolf in CGI hell talk to his boss or whatever. So. That's part of it.
I mean, I think like the fact that there are so many sequences that like bleed through, like not, I don't want to say like you're saying like Eddie, not particularly character significance, and mostly like to me, it's like, oh, this shit looks cool and is a very fun like formal experimentation. It like makes characters and stuff pop that I would, for the rest of the film, was completely disinterested in. Like the Flash stuff. Overall didn't like, but like seeing the little CG sesame seed like that and the hot dog going in slow-mo, I like that stuff.
I like that scene.
Yeah.
To be
Okay.
honest.
So part 3, and before we go into part 3, JT, would you mind opening the window?
Yeah, I got it.
Dang. Sounds like he knows something that we don't know. No.
Part 3 is called Beloved Mother, Beloved Son. It's, for some reason, I thought we were going to just get like a Martha 2.0 moment.
Yeah.
Like I was like, part 3, midpoint, Superman's coming back through the power of someone saying Martha.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen like that. It's not that easy.
Yeah,
you know, the Joker doesn't say we live in a society and there's not a Martha moment. So, you know, unfortunately, neither of those things happen because I was completely here for both of them. But regardless, beloved mother, beloved son, this is where we meet the Flash. He has some absolutely terrible comedy as he's late to a job interview before he has some very cool action as he saves the girl and you know grabs some hot dogs, and you know it's very cool. Snyder is, you know, taking slow motion a step further. He's been such a slow motion fiend throughout these films that I've been so impressed by. So here he goes and puts the world in slow motion and lets the Flash do his thing. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's like, it's not awe-inspiring to look at, to be completely honest, but the more I thought about it, the more I was impressed with it in terms of the relationship between, I guess, the two timelines, and how, you know, toward the end it comes back into play how everything exists at once to the Flash because he's that fast.
That dude must come so quickly.
But he's always coming. But I think that like calls everything into question in a pretty interesting way if you're gonna go and do that extra work.
What if like the Flash is about to come and then he just runs really fast and it goes back in? He keeps doing that over and over again to last a solid 5.
Want to see
good
me do
5.
it again?
Yeah, I
Something to
definitely
think
do
about.
like his basic idea to because Ezra Miller definitely can be grating in the film, trying to make himself kind of like the young snarky kid who's not, doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the characters in that kind of way. And weirdly enough, I thought that this was a better visual representation of that than anything else, because the Flash's version of Aquaman, he's drinking, he's moving one with the giant storm, and the Flash is doing like this little romantic meet cute thing where he's just he's saving the girl for sure, and he's solving a crisis situation, but for half that slow motion sequence he's just looking into her eyes. He's just this girl's pretty cute. That's it. That's his
Going
entire
reading
interest
mode.
in that actual scene. Meanwhile, the sesame seeds are flying by, the hot dogs are going by. It's a very goofy sequence, and Snyder, with all of his visual power, again just trying to make you kind of buy into it a little bit, and it does end up in a nicely kind of composed shot where he's getting that hero moment where he's holding her as the car flies past them and explodes in slow motion and everything like that, because that's what he does. That's what he likes. He likes these moments that probably on the page feel dumber, feel big.
And I think that the more that Snyder visually represents the Flash, the better he is, and the more he talks, the worse he is. It's
Yeah.
a 1-to-1 correlation.
Oh yeah, the Flash in the climactic set piece I think gets the most visually interesting part of the climactic set piece just out of nowhere.
It's true.
Because that climactic set piece is pretty tough. We'll get to it obviously a little bit later, but it's definitely there's a lot of gray aliens shooting laser guns at things that you can't quite see, and as much as Snyder is very good at sort of doing this kind of digital stitching and this sort of movement and slow motion in the frame and everything, you really just can't save some of the design work they went with in that final set piece.
And also, to stick with this third sequence, because I think that ending that Flash sequence on a high note visually and then going to that cyborg flashback with the football game, that's a good way to just build that kind of rising action, But then the rising action kind of comes to a halt when Affleck recruits the Flash then, and it's oh God, this really sucks. He's just doing this kind of aw shucks comedy in the Batcave the whole time, and it's very grating to watch. And then you see Aquaman lose a fight for one of the boxes, and that's when you really learn about the boxes. If you thought you learned about the boxes the first 2 times, boy, were you wrong. Now we know all about the boxes. I think at this point we do know all about the boxes.
I think what with what makes the scenes with the Flash, Batman, Wonder Woman, particularly bad. And of course, the Ezra Miller comedy shit is fucking grating. Not funny at all. Literally does not have one close hit. But in terms of a joke. But it's also kind of what we were talking about, how Snyder plays to Godot's strengths. But I guess this is kind of the limit here, where you kind of have Ezra Miller, doing zany shit in a room. Godot kind of just being strong and silent, and then. I like the Ben Affleck Batman here, but it's also there's kind of a chunky. There's nothing for him to do. He just kind of sits and he's just, I don't know. He's just chunky soup mode or something like that.
I kind of like him in chunky soup mode, where he's just eating slop.
That's one of the flaws of this kind of storytelling, is that Batman can't be as interesting as he was in Batman v Superman because he's no longer psycho-fascist Batman. He had his arc was
That's literally
Superman
what I wrote
changed
down.
my heart.
I wrote down I miss psycho-fascist Batman. I miss that, even if in BVS it was just a spike of aggression kind of. That swing of Batman is not in this at all, and I think every time this steps towards being a Batman movie for 10-15 minutes, I'm oh, this could actually be kind of cool. You have that meeting to start part 4 Change Machine, with Commissioner Gordon played by J.K. Simmons.
Gets a solid 3 minutes.
And it's the gang is almost together. You can almost taste it 3 hours in, but it's I kind of do like this dark Gotham is such a good fit for Snyder, and the Affleck Batman I buy his brooding more than anyone other than I think the Cyborg and Superman, storylines do have an emotional core that do work for me. The rest of the film, the skulking, the brooding, doesn't really hit for me. And I think one of the weaker points is that Batman is kind of just reacting to other people doing that, and it's not like anything of interest for him really, other than bringing back his buddy.
I mean, yeah, you're talking. You miss psycho-fascist Batman. I mean, it's like I think the best part of this movie still, and it was the best part of the original cut, at least to me, is the 9/11 memorial Superman scene. Oh yeah, because evil Superman fucking rules. He's no one could fucking get him, bro.
That's so sick. Much destruction.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I guess it's in Snyder. There's a lot of brooding. I mean, something that always stuck out to me about Batman versus Superman is there's fucking 5 funerals in that movie or something like that.
I guess I just buy the brooding of that movie more because I like the mood of the entire thing. The brooding is that entire movie. Yeah. That movie is just remember Man of Steel? It was actually 9/11. And we're going to remember 9/11 right now.
And I guess that was a quality I found so valuable in Batman versus Superman. And since it's not quite here to the full effect, it's something I'm a little disappointed in.
Yeah, this definitely doesn't go to those almost expressionist nightmare places that he tried to go with Batman v Superman, which is honestly why watching it, I was kind of surprised that Warner Brothers, other than the sheer length of it, took so much issue with it, because weirdly enough, I found this version. It seems like Snyder himself had either this was what he planned to do, or he had already kind of course corrected himself. Much of this is very just plainly earnest superhero storytelling. It's very dorky. He tries to get some emotional elements in there with the origin stories and stuff, but again, Flash is talking not as badly as he did with Whedon's words coming out of his mouth, but he is that archetype of a character. Snyder's version of this movie seemed it was something that they could have accepted. Now maybe it wouldn't have quite gone as far in some places as he got them to go here, like he did in the doing an exposition scene, it's that opening sequence of Lord of the Rings, but it's PlayStation graphics, but also X-rated at the same time, with battle axes going into Darkseid's shoulder, and him just spewing goopy red blood everywhere and things like that. But I think that overall Snyder's project here that he was tackling was something very different than Batman v Superman, where that movie was very kind of ugly and vile, kind of on purpose. It was kind of angry for one of these kinds of movies, and this movie had an idea of it feels a little bit more mournful. It almost feels kind of regretful, and this larger idea that it kind of has that that a lot of these obviously movies had. You'll find this in every fucking Fast and Furious movie as well. But there's idea that these people are coming together and because of shared feelings of, whether, it's some sort of parental relationship gone wrong or some sort of loss in their life, whether it's Lois grieving Superman, or Cyborg who feels this sort of weird, powerful perversity that his father, who didn't go to his football games, turned him into a Frankenstein style monster, or the Flash, who they don't delve into it much, but his father is in prison for killing his mother, which is, something that the fans will know gets expanded on a little bit more, but the way that he brings it up here is very funny for anyone who doesn't know anything about that stuff. But there is something, I think, metatextually interesting about this movie being brought back to life after obviously Zack Snyder had gone through this loss that he had, and we don't know how much tonally and in the edit this matches what he would have released in 2017, because Warner Brothers would not have released a 4-hour version with blood in it. There would have been a 3-hour truncated one, I imagine, somewhere, but releasing this as a 4-hour version where he gets to spend so much time with these characters' backstories and with these sort of blurred, tragic flashbacks that they have. There's so many fucking flashbacks in this movie, which is where he really amps the style up as well. Like that's where we find like the football sequence that you guys were talking about, and Cyborg really does kind of become, weirdly enough, the heart of this movie at a certain point, which makes it like even fucking crazier that Whedon cut him out of the whole movie.
That makes no sense to me. I don't know how this movie exists without a fair amount of Cyborg. Like, until Superman is resurrected, he is the emotional weight of the movie, like entirely.
No, you don't understand. We needed to cut the only black character in the movie so that we could fit more of like the Flash, like falling onto Wonder Woman's boobs and going like, oh,
hey man, they're both Jewish POCs. Okay? They're both POC. Ezra Miller has a throwaway line about being Jewish, and I was like, come on, man. How are you gonna invoke the greats like Albert Brooks, Woody Allen, etc. with that cringe humor?
This is as close as we're gonna get to see Ezra Miller get his Woody movie. Do a Woody role.
Get Woody for the Flash. Anyway,
much like the tradition of great actors before him, like Jason Biggs and Owen Wilson.
Part 5, All the King's Horses. The resurrection is coming, and Batman has a very distinct line for a Batman type character, and for people who don't usually listen to Extended Clip, we're not big superhero nerds on here. We've reviewed a Batman movie though, so I know a little bit about this fella.
I've heard of him.
And he says to Albert that Alfred.
Oh, okay.
Albert.
I was about to be like, yeah, sure, yeah.
It was a sly Pitbull reference. He says to Albert, "I'm operating strictly on faith," and I think that leading into the resurrection of Zack Snyder, Superman, Henry Cavill, Jesus Christ, gives this so much more weight, like, in terms of what this movie is attempting, even compared to BVS. Like, that is not a line from BVS, and not in a way that's like BVS to the Whedon cut. That's just a changed man. Like, whether or not that line was in the cut he wanted to have, whether it was in the Whedon cut, regardless of everything, I think that line like embodies everything about the transition. Really, just reading Snyder as an auteur from 2016, is that when BVS was?
Yeah.
Until now.
No.
I think that this being like a faith-based film is there's something to be said about that. It's kind of beautiful, even if I don't get on its wavelength in that regard, because it's not faith in a traditional sense. Only in one little aspect of the film it is, when you obviously read the Jesus Superman stuff.
Well, yeah, like to keep playing, the BVS and Justice League comparisons, like it is like with BVS there is like such like a darkness to it, or just like very like scenes like a Jolly Rancher scene with Lex Luthor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like with Justice League, like these, when they're all like in the room together, it feels like a recovery meeting, or like there's something like very like earnest and like kind of like I mean I guess the idea, the very base idea of a superhero, it's like we need to save the world or whatever. I guess Snyder's treating that with its utmost respect.
Yeah.
Although I do like that he always fills it with like a little bit of complicated weight. I do like that some of the small gestures anyway when they go back into the ship, and because he does it as this sort of like this very sort of like messy reanimation. Like they're bringing him back to life in the same thing that they brought that Doomsday to life in Batman v Superman, which is like the most CG monstrous looking thing that you've ever seen. And so they're using that same idea to bring him back to life, and I love that the Machine is like talking to Cyborg and being like, this course is irreversible, and Aquaman is like, should we be fucking doing this? This seems wrong. And then when they do it, and again, Snyder does it very well visually, where he has the Flash like generate some sort of energy source or electricity in order to power to bring Superman actually back to life, along with the cyborgs, whatever he's cooking up in there. But there's this part too where we get brief flashes from the Batman v Superman nightmare sequence of that apocalyptic premonition of things to come, which for Zack Snyder, I believed he said that he basically, he eventually wanted that to be one of the Justice League sequels, was like full out crazy, evil Superman, Darkseid has risen and basically disintegrated Lois Lane to a crisp, and you actually do see images and things like that. So even though they're reviving Superman and it's supposed to be this thing of we're getting the team back together, they're doing it with literal flashes of imagery of like Superman screaming, holding like Lois Lane's skeleton with her like skin melted off of it, and various so you don't get this sequence without also having images like that. Or also I think there's a shot of like Wonder Woman being like burned in a pyre, like a Jedi funeral as well.
JT, what were you gonna say?
I mean, I think it was that like this is kind of on a thematic level where it like swings back and forth between like what I really like about the film and what really misses for me, is that it's like going for all of these grieving people sort of coming together to embrace like a more hopeful future by like taking their shared pain into something more positive and uniting against like a larger force of evil. I mean, obviously a lot of the superhero stuff is about that, but it's like that works when there's like characters like Cyborg, and his whole story I think really accomplishes that very well. But then you just have like, I don't know, the looser threads with the Flash or Gal Gadot, where I don't like, I don't know, it's really lacking there. I mean, like with the Affleck Batman stuff, it's a lot of holdover from BVS and him like trying to bring back his buddy again, and I think that works there. But it's just some of these heroes just aren't as good as the others.
Yeah.
Some of these heroes aren't so super, I gotta say.
It is like just I hadn't really thought about that, but like think about Wonder Woman, it's like she doesn't really have much to worry about. And I guess like like of course she wants to, not, you got to get the cubes.
I don't
in
know,
order.
dude. There's some stuff going. There's some Palestinian children throwing rocks.
Yeah, that's true.
You said the thing.
The
He has a
Amazonian
lot
stuff,
to worry about.
but that's
Yeah.
like more abstract. It's not
Yeah.
like I don't
Yeah.
know, the grief of like her sisters dying. It's not like as concrete as like Cyborg like losing his mom and dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't sold on quite as a personal level as the other.
Yeah.
storylines.
I do like Superman's resurrection. Like, there's that huge blast, and the first, maybe not the very first, but one of the first cutaways from that blast is a close-up on a cop pulling his gun out of the holster.
Yeah.
Like he's just going to shoot the light beam that births Superman. Very good. But after he comes back, and Amy Adams calms him down after evil Superman tries to fight everyone, he flies
Just needs
away
some
with
pussy.
her. Yeah, he just needs some pussy. So he flew up to space, got some pussy, flew back down, landed on Earth with her.
wonder
For
he was
part
so mad.
6. Yeah, that's why he calmed down.
That was an incel mass killing or something like that.
Part 6, something darker. We see these like Terrence Malick-esque vistas of him at the old Smallville house, where he quite literally, like a Malick movie, like rubs a thing of wheat through his fingers, and they're just kind of brooding, but it's easily forgivable. It's quite beautiful, and after this incredibly moving resurrection at that, and this is really the peak of the movie for me, or at least one of the better moments of the movie for me, where you have them just like embracing each other outside, and he's coming back to humanity, coming back to reality kind of, and you just cut back to the action going on, and yeah, it's a little much of a CG slop action, but there is some cool stuff like Batman pulling up in the Batmobile with the turret. It's like everything's a little too dark, but then he slides in a classic Snyder slow-mo shot of a shell popping out of the turret of the Batmobile and following that shell fall like off of the Batmobile and onto the concrete, and it's like, oh my god, yes, that shot breaking up all of those clusters of CG, indecipherable CG compared to this CG beauty, was wonderful. But Yeah, I really liked the scenes here, despite my aversion to Amy Adams. The scenes here with Lois Lane, where he's coming back to reality before he goes to help out in the climax, are quite beautiful to me.
You know, just talking about the slow motions, like I think every use of slow motion in this movie I pretty much like, and maybe a slow motion cut is in order.
Damn, the slow mo cut.
The 8 hour.
8 hour slow mo cut. I mean, but it is like that's where I feel like, and maybe since it's one of the more kind of, I don't know, it's a very easy thing to recognize slow motion. It's very obvious that he's, messing with something there, but like that's where I enjoy him the most, are kind of like these grandiose gestures and whatnot, and like that seems to be one of his interests. But like then like these kind of like prolonged battle scenes seem to be another one of his interests, and it's, how can we find a way to combine those two aspects? Zack Snyder brings some of that to the battlefield. Yeah. And there, and this, not to say I don't dislike every like combat scene in here, like the Amazon one you mentioned, and I kind of like, I think, are we talking about the one? Is this like the main fight that you're getting into now?
Yeah, the end of part 6. Yeah.
Yeah, like I like that one, especially when Superman starts coming in too.
Yeah, and I like the concept of the Flash having to push Cyborg like into the square or something to deactivate it, whatever mumbo jumbo it is. He messes up. He falls down. And he gets a second shot because he's so fucking fast that, he can pull a temporal pincer maneuver all by himself. So he basically gives himself a second chance in a way that's really beautiful, and like this, blue wash just surrounds him kind of. And it almost reminds me of, that really internal moment toward the end of Speed Racer at the Grand Prix where, he gives himself that pep talk. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Like, at least Zack is swinging for those emotional fences.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that even in Ezra Miller's performance, like I wish that there was more setup for him to get to that moment, because the moment I think works like on like, divided from the rest of it. But like I was sitting there and I was like, wow, this is actually a very interesting moment, because I forget the exact line that he gets, but he gets something about, that the future and past are all at the same time, done as Snyder is visualizing that in, his flashes of lightning reforming the things that were just, decimated because Darkseid and whatever his face is, they got the boxes together and it nuked the planet and they're gonna, genocide everyone or whatever. But when everything is being reformed and he's sitting there and you can watch the ground reforming as his feet is just like barely touching it, and Junkie XL actually does a really cool little score during that moment too, and the character is just talking to himself when that happens, and then you get classic Snyder shit in that moment where Superman and Cyborg are reformed, having had an explosive blast like tear them apart, so you see their skeleton and their muscle and their veins like reattach to their bodies as he's turning back time, which is just such like an incredibly graphic way of obviously visualizing that. And then when he goes into Cyborg and he gives him that power, which is then he's supposed to use to separate all the cubes or whatever it is, you get a really great moment with Cyborg as well, where that's visualized through the cubes trying to trick him into being images of his family, who he obviously misses. Both of his parents have died over the course of the film, and he just gets that line about being I'm not broken and I'm not alone, and he just denies that sort of vision that the cubes offer him, and then that breaks them apart. And it's just such a like plainly, again, it's like the Martha moment, like it's very corny, but it's very clear that Snyder believes in those kinds of corny emotions. He thinks that way. It's the kind of person that he is. You feel like he's the kind of guy who looks at like memes on the internet that tell him that's how he navigates some of his relationships. This is the most beautiful image
you will see today.
Yes. and there is something to be said about just a guy who believes in that enough and has enough craft behind him in order to sell it. And to credit to him, I think that even without all of the character work being there to do it, I mean, it is with Cyborg, but less so with Flash, I found myself kind of feeling things in that sequence. So
no, yeah, I feel like this, like I love the visuals of the Flash, running through. But I like you said, like when he's saying like I'm doing this for you, Dad, or something like. Doesn't he say something like that?
Yeah, he does say something.
And I'm like, this is the balance of Snyder. Snyder, great visual artist, but he's a little bit corny.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, something like the Martha scene or like Cyborg talking to his parents. I don't know. It hits a different tone with me to where it is. Yeah, I guess maybe it's just like the earnestness of it that especially in the Martha scene, it kind of comes out of nowhere. It seems.
I think also I'll say this, that I am a big fan of that scene. I think a lot of what sells the Martha scene is Affleck's reaction, though.
Yeah,
even
true.
with the mask on, like Affleck's reaction in that scene is some of his best acting. Frankly,
being confronted with humanity, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like Flash, it's like I guess it's like I said, I love the visuals of that. It's not quite connecting the next dot to get like the emotional reaction, rather than kind of just going with the base, like I want to impress my father or something.
Yeah, and I think his melodramatic gestures are just as grand as his action ones, and so it can be just as hit and miss.
He's a home run hitter.
He can be a home run hitter. He can also strike out a lot.
Yep.
He could be like Adam Dunn. So they're able to, I guess, deactivate the bomb, desync the 3 cubes, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a great moment too when they do that, where they're like just looking through the portal at the giant like CG hell. It just looks like Doom for like a second. And there's a great moment.
I actually did like that. Yeah, because at that point the graphics were small enough. So it was like it actually matched, kind of.
Well, yeah, it kind of has like that unreality effect that they're looking at something that is not on Earth at all. But also too,
exactly.
It actually does visually match that big sort of like Lord of the Rings-esque fantasy sequence he does earlier, where all of the he had like Vikings and Zeus and all these different gods and fighting together to get rid of this this giant space dude or whatever he is, and leave it to Snyder to mirror that with now the modern version of that is just like a dude that looks like a bat and some kid in like a red suit and everything. And I almost felt the humiliation for whoever this big CG monster is that before he had giant muscled men hitting him with lightning bolts. And now like this time around that he's been defeated, it's an interesting moment that Snyder always complicates, where it's this half-hearted victory. And part of it is that he's setting up more movies that will probably never come, but there is sort of this idea that they kind of only stalled these giant things that were coming, and they only did it in just the nick of time, and they were a bunch of sort of like weirdo kind of people who previously had nothing to do with one another. And there is a little bit of weight to watching just these costumed weirdos looking through a space portal at like the devil. And just because that's how Snyder thinks about these things. And I'm surprised that more movies don't kind of like feel that way, because again, even when he's doing it with hastily thrown together graphics, he somehow makes goofy things feel mythical in that way. And I think that that's one of the better moments that he gets there, especially too because he visually sets it up. Honestly, I wish that was closer to where the movie ended than what we're about to talk about.
Okay, I think the epilogue kind of owns, like, in a weird way. In a weird way, it's like on its own. But after you've watched it for 3 hours and 45 minutes, it's like, oh my god. But on its own, like, I'm looking at my notes for epilogue, A Father Twice Over, and it does kind of rule. It's about mending relationships with fathers, and I think Zack just putting a button on that note of an emotional story about fatherhood and his circumstances, and the first credit being For Autumn, really makes the epilogue hit home in that regard. But then, and that's only the first half of the epilogue, though. That's the funny thing. The epilogue is split in half. So you have the emotional parts. You have Cyborg reassemble the Sony tape machine or the Sony voice recorder, whatever. A nice little analog fetish thrown in there. I like that little piece of equipment. And he learns the emotional part that of the message his father left for him, and we see some more closure with the Flash getting a job at a fucking crime lab. Like, oh boy, yeah, that's gonna help your dad.
Probably should have just told him you were in Justice League. That's
that's way cooler. Yeah.
I'm chilling with fucking Batman.
But it is quite touching for Snyder, as I said.
Yeah.
But then it's like it descends into madness. First you get Lex Luthor going bald like Bezos, just looking hilarious. Just nonsense. As much nonsense as you could throw in 90. I loved it. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
That's what I was hoping more of from the Justice League at large was I like when Zack Snyder the chaos of Sucker Punch, I love. And it's when he goes crazy mode, that's what I'm there for. And he crams a lot of crazy in the last 20 minutes. Especially, we have to mention the line at some point, but just the Joker talking about giving Batman a reach around.
Oh my God. So the implications. We have this dream sequence where Batman is fighting in this rogue militia of some sort in this Fallout gray-scaled Denis Villeneuve looking Los Angeles where the Joker is in a SWAT uniform and the guy that's supposed to be trying to kill Batman with one eye is there too, and he's hanging out with them. And the Joker's just like, hey man, what are you gonna do without me? Who's gonna give you a reach around?
It's I do like it, but at this point, I was like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, I was so exhausted.
Yeah, I was like, oh, yeah.
I think the epilogue works as its own 8-minute or however long short film.
Yeah.
But in the sticking that at the end of 3 hours, 50 minutes is
and also it's worth noting that those are the reshoots. That stuff
okay,
with Joker.
Nice. That kind of rules.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so funny.
He threw in setup for the next movie as the reshoot, which I'm not sure if it was his pitch to Warner Brothers to be able to keep going, because again, as I mentioned, I kind of like this sort of this apocalyptic dream stuff that he's been setting up, especially when he started it in Batman v Superman. But there is something about this one where I was just kind of oh, he's just gonna keep going with it, even though they definitely aren't making this movie anymore. Which I guess on its own way is just him asserting his power over Warner Brothers, that he literally used their money to reshoot, more setup.
Yeah. Which I thought was also strange because of the visual style of it too. He shoots this not in a shot reverse shot, but he's just shooting these in profile kind of close-ups against the sun of both of these characters. And maybe it's to add to that nightmare feeling of it, because it's then revealed to be Batman's sick dream in which he contemplates the Joker giving him a handy.
I also like that, considering that those are reshoots, it's I think Snyder's I gotta give Leto a monologue here, because it is it is funny that the idea of a very serious and twisted Joker did happen, and it wasn't him, it was Joaquin Phoenix. And he really wanted to sell that idea, and it did not work out for him at all. People will I don't know how people felt about him before, but he'll be made fun of for that for a long time. But also it's was it Jim Carrey? Is that the Joker now? Is that what? Because it was literally, I don't know. It seems like such a the hype. It's very funny because you could go Bozo, who also kind of owns territory with this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just so fucking strange. I know Leto has a whole Joker movie in his head or something that's going on, and it's just you just get this weird 3-minute thing. It's why the fuck is he even there? But it's all right, you know what? That's if you're gonna make a fucking 4 hours director's cut, I guess that's why you put stuff like this in it.
it ends then, I think, is the last line of the movie, "My name is Martian Manhunter."
Yeah, like Martian Manhunter just showing up to Batman's clip. Batman's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I think
All right, man.
Neil Bahadur posted his side-by-side screen with the end of The Godfather 2 with that house on the lake with Pacino looking out the window as he's, ordering the murder of his brother. And, obviously different dramatic implication, but honestly, the way Snyder approaches like visual kind of citation and influence and stuff, I could see it. I could see him being like, oh yeah, this house kind of looks like the end of Godfather 2. This is the end of the movie. It kind of has that same weight. Affleck's like the center of the movie technically. It makes sense. The other reference that people got big mad at was Tarkovsky's Zerkalo, the mirror. We see is it Aquaman's send off in the first chapter,
Yeah.
and you get that
they
like
sing,
Nordic
some
song being
for
sung.
him, yeah.
Yeah, and that part's not even Tarkovskian or whatever. It's just that push in on the lady's bun that looks like the mom and mirror. And it's like, yeah, if he likes Tarkovsky, he likes Tarkovsky, and he likes, slow camera movement and like kind of what's going on, like time space stuff. And good for him. Like I don't see what's wrong with that. I think that's kind of cool. That's neat.
It looks cool. Like
it was also a cool shot.
Yeah, it
that's
looked
all that
good.
matters. It looks cool.
Good job.
I think this movie is good. It has a lot of issues, but like obviously the very concept of the Snyder cut is such a great thing. Like I'm so happy he won. He beat the studios. Authorship won out. A director got to make a movie rather than a focus group. And yeah, that's a great thing for cinema. As a movie in itself, I haven't seen the Whedon cut in full. As a movie as itself, it's good. It's flawed. There's about 80 minutes where I have no clue what I'm looking at. And I think that I like some other Snyder stuff for being more audacious in terms of just like camera movement, cutting. Like this is more audacious on a big picture scale. I think I like the moment to moment pleasures of something as crazy as Sucker Punch, or even the big picture stuff of Watchmen compared to this. But I'm going to give it 3 bullets. What about you, JT?
I'm going to agree with you there. I like when he is allowed to, he goes crazy mode and shoots off in different ways. And I appreciate the fact that he was able to make something that feels like as constructed as this. And this is like, I don't want to say his plea to the critics, but it's like what Josh was saying earlier, where it's like, I mean, aside from the length, it's like I don't really know why Warner Brothers was opposed to this much, because it's like the most palatable to a general audience I feel like his style has been, and got to give it to him. We love here at Extended Clip, and there's so much love and unity that happens in Resurrection here that it's a good one. 3 bullets.
I'm going to give it 2.5 bullets. I think I'm just a little less hot on it than you guys. And I feel like maybe it's like you said, there were 80 minutes where you're like, what are you looking at? Maybe that's 100 minutes for me. And it's like, that's fucking 100 minutes, man. That's a goddamn movie. 80 minutes is a goddamn movie.
Yeah.
And
for what you described, that's Detour and 2 classic Chaplin 2 reelers.
Exactly. So it is and I admire the length and authorship wins. We love it. But at the same time, it's really fucking long, and a lot of it is not fun to watch. But, and I you know what? I hesitate saying a lot. A lot is maybe a bridge too far. And even some of the scenes, I don't know. There's nothing when I don't know, the last Marvel movie I saw, I think was Avengers: Age of Ultron. Or whatever, and there's easily
that's the good one according to
Salad. Yeah,
yes, Dan's Salad.
Salad's up on that. I remember that.
I think it's Salid.
Oh,
that's
really?
all I'm gonna. Yeah,
Salad sounds hard as fuck though. I like Salad better.
That makes it sound like a '50s B movie director.
sorry, Salid, but I'm sure you're listening. But
no, but there are a few Salidists in our crowd.
True.
Sure.
I reference him out of liking of him. But what I was gonna say, it's there's easily 7 to 15 moments where I'm just God fucking damn it, why did that just happen? Where it's some of the bads are just that's really fucking annoying. Whereas like in like some of the bad stuff, quote unquote, in Justice League cut, it's just kind of like I just can't. My mind doesn't register it, so it's like less. I don't know. It's less negative in my mind.
Yeah. Josh. Sorry.
No, no. But I was gonna say like it's like the big visual moments that keep me interested, and I don't know. Watching this makes me want to go back. I haven't seen Watchmen yet. I want to rewatch BVS, so I think I might have Snyder fever. Who knows?
Josh.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm a little hotter on it than most of you guys. I don't know that I have a super cogent argument for why. It's mostly kind of like a feeling with the film. But because I definitely wrestled. I was kind of stuck. You know, when I finished watching it, I think I was kind of like hanging around the 3 like with you guys. But in kind of talking about it and writing it, and going through some of the sequences again, and just kind of giving them as their own sort of like mini films almost, I found it like really growing on me. I mean, obviously, just the fact that what is essentially an assembly cut like this expansive and large just exists at all is pretty incredible. But I also, in remembering well enough the Whedon cut, I found this like way better paced even than its 2-hour counterpart. And I found the stuff that Zack was able to include, there were scenes that had moments to breathe, even stuff that I think I wouldn't like normally. Things like, some of the giant CG action sequences that take place, a combination of, him being able to open up the frame so you get more of the space, him being able to elongate it because, he's not being told to shorten because by this minute you need to get to the next exposition sequence, him just having a sense of patience even with some of the action sequences. For me, it just made them play stronger, even though there are obviously flaws when it comes to all of these films, and that all of them on some level have to have some of that generic sort of brand management shuffling that they all do. But Zack doing them, I bought into them more. Things I feel like I would normally be annoyed about, I found myself, kind of drinking up in Zack Snyder's version of them. But maybe I've just, maybe that's where auteurism takes you. Maybe that shit. Maybe I have to go and give the superhero, the superhero craze another shot. We'll see. But yeah, other than that, it's just an amazing artifact to see that something that was so garishly Frankensteined into something awful to come out the other side, a movie that has some atmosphere to it, that has some attempts at emotional pathos, whether they work or not. The whole experience was just kind of surreal to watch, and I do think that we will probably never end up getting something like this again. I think Warner Brothers probably learned their lesson to not trust, the music video himbo with the most expensive IP that they own, and to let him make them shoot guns and kill each other and do whatever it is that his mind could come up with. But For me, I do think that this is a culmination of a lot of his interests, at least in the idea of superheroes as myth, and I got a lot out of it, and I could see myself honestly kind of going back to it and giving it another shot. So,
yeah.
There's only one question left after this movie. What's next for the Big Z? What can he do after this?
Well, he's doing that zombie movie next.
Yeah, it's
is
coming out like pretty soon.
Oh,
Army of
I
the
forgot
Dead.
about that.
Yeah.
I'm
Wait,
very
Josh,
excited.
did you give a bullet rating?
Oh yeah, sorry, 4.
Great. Other than Army of the Dead, I guess, whatever, we'll get to it. That's going to do it for Justice League, but, we didn't get any emails last week, and then the box got flooded because everyone knows we're talking about Snyder Cut. So, Josh, you down to stick around for the famous email segment?
Absolutely.
All right. extendedclippodcast@gmail.com is where you email us for the best segment of the week, because it's not a double feature, so we're not doing Malcolm in the Middle this week. Our first one, question for the pod from Hayden Carr. Have you guys ever tried DMT? Warm wishes, Hayden, a.k.a. Frigid Mirth in the Discord. P.S. Watch Pat Labor 1 and 2.
Well, I'll get on that. I'll watch those immediately.
Should I do it while I'm on DMT?
Yeah, that might be the move. But no, I've never done DMT. But you can't just talk like that if you don't have any to offer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I got to say.
JT?
I haven't either, but you should send us some.
Through the mail.
Josh, have
Through
you
email.
ever broken on through to the other side?
I haven't, but thanks for the question, man.
Yeah, me neither. Next one. Music vid directors. Hey, EC. Seeing as Snyder started out in music videos, any current music video directors you would want to see work in feature films? Excited for the inevitable Cole Bennett superhero movie? Imagine a Green Lantern where he uses the ring to make a bunch of CGI rap video thoughts. Or any recent music videos that you've seen that you think rock. Best, Eric. Well, that is a good question. I don't know many music video directors by name, though, so I guess I would only have the videos themselves as reference, other than, like, clear auteurs like Hype Williams, who made movies, obviously, or who made Belly, at least. But, Malcolm, any music videos of late that you love?
Well, you know, this is not someone I'm actually particularly a fan of his music videos, but I remember Director X, his biggest claim to fame being the Hotline Bling music video. He got to direct a Superfly remake in, like, 2018. And like the Future and Young Thug got to do the soundtrack, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't amazing, and it was like, I don't know, it was, you know, purely visual too. You know, it wasn't all of the classic tenets of cinematic storytelling wasn't exactly there, but like, I don't know, it was just kind of like dumb and had like a visual thing to it. So I somewhat enjoyed it, and so yeah, it's kind of like with current artists, I feel like I mostly keep up with rap videos.
Yeah,
and the thing with rap videos is like pretty much everyone's just doing them themselves. Like they're making their own videos nowadays, and it's like it's less and less is kind of like get a bunch of people in like some studio room or like some like white or black backdrop and have them, you know, like
rap at the camera. Have 5 cameras, cut it between them. You know, I mean, most contemporary rap videos seem more. It's just like a vibe set by production design and what kind of camera you use, and then it's all in the edit, pretty much. Yeah.
Or guns. Like if you got something
obviously
cool.
the production design is like the props as well. Or hey, they're not props, they're real. But like you know, I think Krayshawn directed the Lil B Like a Martian video.
I like
so
that
hey,
one.
maybe give Krayshawn a feature.
Cool Keith. I was listening to this Cool Keith interview where he was talking about why like Little B. And I won't go too long on this, but like there was like a good thing. He was talking about his music videos. He's like, Little B will shoot a music video anywhere. He was saying like,
so true.
He's like, there's just random like music videos where he's just in like a courtyard plaza or like a country club or just like somewhere random, and it's. Yeah, so I've always loved the immediacy of Little B's.
I think Lil B's music videos actually do kind of work as like an ethnographic documentary of the Bay Area.
That's true too.
Like it's kind of just like hanging out at different spots. Have you seen what's his indie rock song, California Boy?
Fuck, I forgot
that
about
video
that.
is so funny because it's just him hanging out at Berkeley with white kids.
Yeah,
it's very funny. Give Lil B a fucking feature film.
Yeah,
I think he's like one of the best music video artists working. Next one. Oh, actually, sorry, Josh. Any music video hits for you?
Do you know what? I hardly watch them. I would not have any strong opinion on them. I don't even know any of them by name, so I am no help on this question, unfortunately.
Okay, JT.
Yeah, I'm not a music video guy either, particularly.
Okay.
Cole Bennett will get to direct a feature film, and that's gonna be funny.
I really want the person who directed the Alien Ant Farm cover of Smooth Criminal
my
music
God.
video.
That's one of my favorite music videos.
Of
I've
all
ever
time.
revealed that to you? Damn.
I think we've shared this before,
Yeah.
but I'm on the verge of tears at the revelation that my friend Malcolm and I have the same favorite music video. Because it really is one of the greatest videos of all time.
You know what? You don't want to know another great music video director? Fucking Fred Durst.
That's so true.
Look at the My Way music video by Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit. I don't know. He's definitely he's messing with some ideas here. He's a man with visuals on his head.
Oh yeah, he did a better Joker movie than Joker with the Fanatic too.
Fanatic rules. I love Fanatic.
Question for the pod from James McLaren. Hey guys, since you guys are talking about the Snyder Cut, what are your favorite films that have a very long runtime? Let's say around 4 hours long. Although I know many prefer The Testament of Dr. Mabusa, I found Dr. Mabusa and The Gambler to be monumentally thrilling for its entire runtime, and I'm definitely looking forward to watching Kenzie Mizoguchi's The 47 Ronin when I have the time. Ugh, same here, buddy. Thanks. James. I'm gonna watch some, normal length Mizoguchi before I get to that one. But I don't know. I mean, we went on Laura Jacobus's podcast a couple weeks ago to talk about Intolerance, and that's one of my favorite long movies ever, for sure.
Yeah, I guess, sticking with like the 4 hours qualifier, I was trying to think of movies I had watched that were 4 hours and longer. And I think it's just Snyder Cut and La Belle Noiseuse. Like,
La Belle Noiseuse is up there for sure. Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
Almost.
I think because I think one thing about this podcast, it's like anytime we've done a long movie, I'm glad we've done it because it kind of, I don't know, I have this inherent fear, and I'm sure a lot of people have this, just like 4 hours. That's a long time to sit through. You know what I mean? So I do kind of like, we're doing an episode on Heaven's Gate. I have to watch Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate is amazing. I'm glad I watched it. So yeah, that's my answer to the question.
Yeah, for long movies like that, I also like doing them in a theatrical setting because it's like if I can clear out a day, just spend it at the movies, that's great. And when there was the new restoration of it, I did it twice with one of my favorite long movies is War and Peace by Sergei Bondarchuk, who also like stars in this version of War and Peace. It's like, I don't know, there's so much action. Apparently, in a similarly long, like, troubled production, I think they, like, released, like, a few... I mean, it was planned to be released this way, but they did, like, it... And I think, like, about 4 parts, like, shot over the course of, like, maybe, like, 6 years doing, like, part and a part. But, like, he like, acts in it as well, and he had, like, maybe... I think, like... 3 heart attacks during the making of the movie.
Christ.
One where he was like legally dead, and so another.
I've been legally dead for years, man.
And another crazy part about it is because it's like the Soviet Union in the '60s. They're using like a lot of real life like artifacts that they had from the time. They're also using the resources of the entire Red Army to get like huge crowd and like war scenes. So it really like it's an epic length movie that pulls that off in the sense that the scale of it is grand and it breezes by for like 7 hours.
Also, I wanted to throw in Fred Wiseman, all his movies. I mean, not all of them are that long, but watch Ex Libris, learn about libraries for 4 hours. One of the best movies. Josh, what are your favorite long-ass movies?
I mean, the only thing I've seen that's over 4 hours, or at least on it, because I think the only actual film I've seen that's over 4 hours is like Showa, I guess. I'm not going to recommend Showa on the pod. I mean, I will as an amazing film, but it's not the most fun thing to recommend to people to watch. But one that's like
here, man.
just under 4 hours that I really, really liked. I don't know if you guys got a chance to catch it. An Elephant Sitting Still. I saw that in a theatrical setting at the Toronto Film Fest, and I
didn't get to watch that one.
I found that one very moving because at like 4 hours long, it's a very like miserable film, and part of the reason that it's so well known is that the writer and director, he killed himself before the film actually came out, and part of that was trying to maintain its length. He was getting in a lot of fights with the people who were trying to put the film out and things like that, and that was something that really hurt him. And they eventually released the 4 hour film, and it is a tough sit in that it's a lot of sort of close up, shallow focus tracking shots of these characters who are in a lot of suffering in their life. So there's a lot of pain to sitting there and watching these characters wander around for 4 hours, but after a while, it does build to a sense of kind of compassion. The unbearable sort of like length of it does sort of give way to this desire that the filmmaker Hubo clearly had, that he wanted to spend more time with these characters, that he really liked them. He felt that showing them was important, and he wanted to give them more time to, maybe find something else, or to, at certain points in the film, they actually run into each other. He wanted them to make each other's lives a little bit better, and you do get that through some of the duration. So if you're interested in a film that I think really interestingly uses its length, that was one that I was lucky to see in a theater, and it just blew me away.
All right. what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the next one. Next question. Next question. How about a 4-hour movie about life, not about killing yourself? No, just kidding. R.I.P.
That's why the Snyder cut was so important, man. We've seen, you know.
All right.
Sorry.
Next question is from email MVP Valerie returns. Hey fellas, I don't know anything whatsoever about comic books. Hey, I'm right there with you. But what newspaper comic strip would you like to see Zack Snyder adapt into a film? Thanks, Valerie. Now this, so much potential could be mined.
I'm gonna go right out the gate and say any of the R. Crumb comics.
Oh,
like
that would be
Mr.
great.
Natural, who's
Is
I
that
don't
shit
know.
in the newspaper?
It was in some zines. He got in zines, so I'm gonna say the newspaper. This is my way to shoehorn this in. But like, I don't know if you know the character of Mr. Natural. He's this horny little guy with like a big white beard who goes around like sticking his head in like women's asses, and like there's one like I think pretty famous one where Mr. Natural like stuffs in a woman's head for this guy because he says like this is what the perfect woman is, and it's just this headless woman walking around naked and like real beefy muscular Crumb style. And I think it's like, I don't know, it would be an interesting intersection, the Crumb art style with the Snyder like muscular fixation.
You know,
Yeah.
pivoting off that, you know, Snyder, he makes these movies, you know, about, I haven't seen, you know, 300, you know, people who are fighting a lot, you know, a lot of buff men. But, you know, I want a little, you know, mix up some of that representation, and I want him to adapt the Far Side comics, because every character famously in the Far Side comics was really fat. And so it'd just be cool to see some big, large people in Zack Snyder movies.
I was actually thinking along the same lines, but more of a prescriptive take. I was thinking Zack Snyder takes over Garfield, gets him in shape. Get rid of that lasagna trash.
Positive attitude Garfield.
I love Mondays. Mondays when I wake up and I do my routine. I lift from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
I love to hustle.
He's just learning about action cinema and taking care of his body. That's the new version of Garfield by Zack Snyder.
And John's alpha now, too.
And he's brooding because he actually went through with it and mailed Odie to Iran.
Oh, I was actually going to say, no, there was going to be a slow... Well, that makes perfect sense. Because while Odie's in Iran fighting in this, you know, alternate future where Donald Trump actually did declare war on Iran, Odie's over there fighting in the war, and, you know, Buff Garfield is brooding. And then we have this flashback set to an acoustic version of what's a Leonard Cohen song that would like really piss off his fans to be used in an obscene way. You get back to me on that, but and then it's Garfield and Odie finally fucking, and it's a flashback of them fucking like the night before Odie went off to fight for freedom in Iran for the new American democracy, to add them as the 51st state, 52nd after Vietnam. I forgot about the events of Watchmen, but I think that would be a really fun movie.
I'd give it a watch. I think maybe last year's Man or something.
Okay, yeah, throw in an especially sad version of that song.
Yeah.
Josh, do you have any comic strips that you would like to see Zack Snyder adapt?
Oh yeah, and moving away from, you know, you guys were kind of focusing on the men and the fighting and stuff. For me, I would want to see, you know, Zack Snyder, noted fan of Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. He's been trying to adapt that for a long time. So what I would like to see is him apply that sensibility. The guy sort of pushing against, you know, the evil socialist system. And I would like to see him apply that to the comic strip Dilbert. Office culture,
that is
Scott
so
Adams.
true. One man rising above the bureaucracy and the political correctness of the workplace to individual excellence.
It's like it's Zack Snyder's Falling Down.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my god, that's perfect.
We get Adams on the screenplay too, dude. That's
gonna
gonna be
two true individualist teams, Adams and Snyder.
I thought you were about to go Doonesbury over Dilbert there.
I would love to see his Doonesbury too.
I just want a Doonesbury movie, period. I don't care who does it. I need it. That was definitely the one, like, because I only read newspaper comics when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, skip, easy, skip, not reading fucking Doonesbury.
I was ready to like understand it when I was an adult.
Yeah. Is it just like soldiers talking to each other? That's
I
what
guess
it,
so.
yeah. Not my thing.
Not my thing either. The next email.
God damn, we got a lot of emails.
It's the last one. Subject from Finnish fan named Sad Assad. Sad as. Oh, it looks like they just.
Sad.
It's just like ASD a bunch, but it looks like it says Sad Assad at first. Hi, boyos. How's it hanging? Love the show here in Finland. Movie culture pretty much sucks and is pretty much dead like the rest of Nordic countries. What are your favorite recent blockbusters? And also, what are your favorite comedies of the 80s? Oh, a letterboxed question.
I was going to say,
I should have screenshot this ahead of time and sent it to the guys, but this question did come in quite hot. But honestly, my favorite recent blockbuster is fucking Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition.
Yeah.
That's my favorite
answer,
one
too.
since Watchmen. And then it's Watchmen, honestly. Like, I mean, it depends on what you qualify as blockbuster, I guess. There's some pretty high budget films in my favorites of the last 10 years. I guess, looking just at budget, The Irishman is pretty much a blockbuster movie. That is hundreds of millions of dollars.
A lot of stars.
Yeah.
Star power.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. That's up there.
What do you call it? I think, this is not quite an endorsement really, but I did... there was at the time there's a lot of people I trusted that said Venom was pretty enjoyable, and I went to go see it at a dollar theater, and I enjoyed like the first 30 minutes of it, but I think I just like fell asleep and missed the rest of it. But so yeah,
I liked Alita Battle Angel in terms of recent blockbusters.
Nice. Josh, what about you in terms of recent blockbusters?
Oh man, I mean, I guess this isn't recent, but I kind of want to highlight it just because I just rewatched it last night. But for a big blockbuster, I really enjoyed Peter Jackson's King Kong, which I just popped in the 4K disc of last night, and I was quite pleased with how someone who, like Snyder, in my opinion, is also just a dude who, he got started making like gore movies with his best buddies, and he has a sense of genre movie playfulness to him that, mixed in with sort of like the technological advances that Cameron and Spielberg were making, and doing sort of his own Titanic, Jurassic Park version of like a 30s adventure monster movie type thing. There was a lot to really like, and talk about also another long fucking film. We watched the extended edition, which was like 3 hours and 20 minutes or something.
Jesus. I actually have that movie on DVD.
What's that?
I've never watched it. I have that movie on a DVD from Blockbuster that I think we were supposed to give back before it went out of business or whatever.
Well, yeah, man. If you want to see the guy who made Bad Taste and Brain Dead, give a shot at doing the real 1930s King Kong with like monsters eating people alive and stepping on their heads and crushing their skulls and stuff in a PG blockbuster. It's very old fashioned and sentimental and very gross.
Nice. Second part of the question, in terms of 80s comedies, I mean, you go to Hong Kong for some action comedies. You got stuff like Pedicab Driver or Wheels on Meals. But stateside, I don't know. The Albert Brooks movies that we talked about a few weeks ago, or a few months ago now. Modern Romance is my favorite of those. What else would you say for 80s comedies? Hardly Working and Smorgasbord, the two Jerry Lewis movies, are great.
Kind of going outside of like the auteurist framework. Well, it's still a little bit, to be honest. But like kind of going for like what you think of, when you think of 80s comedy, kind of like, I really like My Tutor, which is like a half erotic, half like comedy movie about like the 17-year-old having sex with his tutor.
Nice.
I like Skin Deep, which is like this late Blake Edwards effort where it's we got cast favorite John Ritter. I really do like John Ritter a lot in movies.
Yeah.
I think he's a good actor. But yeah, it's Skin Deep. It's just about a shallow author who he's womanizes too much and he just learns to not do that. And Raising Arizona, give the Coen brothers credit where it's due. It's a very funny movie.
Absolutely.
Loverboy, we reviewed on here. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Paul Mazursky, kind of just like a goof. It's not a great movie, to be honest, but it just has like kind of like this goofy posture to it. You know, you have Nick Nolte, Richard Dreyfuss, Little Richard, all scrambling around suburban Los Angeles. So, that was entertaining to me.
Yeah, in terms of like the bigger 80s comedies, I mean, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, it's hard to beat that movie in my opinion. But that is, I guess, an auteurist one.
Yeah.
If you respect.
I recently did Moonstruck for the first time, which I thought was awesome.
Oh, that's a great
hell
one.
Yeah.
It has like more of a sort of subtly darker sense of humor to it than I thought it would have going into it, and there's just a lot of Italian American excellence all over the screen on that one. So
Yeah. Hollywood Shuffle is a great
hell yeah.
satire of Hollywood's treatment of black actors and creatives in general. At the time, a true auteur effort from Robert Townsend as the star writer director. I think he co-wrote it with Keenan Ivory Wayans, but it's such an incredible film. It's half narrative, half sketch comedy. And yeah, it's one of the best, like most scathing critiques of the industry at the time, and also just a fucking hilarious movie.
Well, I wouldn't like necessarily classify them as like straight up comedies. Demi's like 80s output.
Married to the Mob is
Married
total
to the
comedy,
Mob,
yeah.
Something Wild, Melvin and Howard, like all those fucking rule. Some other like odds and ends. Eating Raoul, I like. And
You know what I like a lot is Easy Money.
I was about to mention that. Yeah.
Fucking Rodney mode, dude. Rodney and Joe Pesci, a buddy movie between them, just getting high and cracking wise and getting by. Really, it's just so funny, and it's just like Rodney's got to give up on getting high and booze and gambling all the time, and it's hard to get by.
That would be fucking hard. And I like that movie like much more than Back to School. I've watched Back to School like a couple times because I love Rodney and I love his
the
movies.
best.
Yeah, but it's so like I wanted to enjoy it way more than I do, and for some reason I just find Easy Money like leagues ahead of that movie for some reason. Also, I guess O.C. and Stiggs, Altman's kind of two suburban boys running wild satire comedy. I'm a big fan of him in that mode because of course I like his classic stuff, but something like Dr. T and the Woman and O.C. and Stiggs that just has like, I don't know, there's a certain quality to those movies that's like that they seem that they could be easily misinterpreted, and I like that about them.
Mm-hmm. Another 80s comedy I'll shout out is The Last American Virgin. I feel like I may have talked about this movie in some capacity. It's a really nasty, kind of reprehensible sex comedy that's a remake of the director's comedy that he made in Israel called Lemon Popsicle.
Ooh.
But this is what The Last American Virgin. It's, it's a classic. It's like, I've seen a couple of these. I haven't seen a lot of like the meat of the bones of these ones. I've seen more of like the odds and ends. Like I saw Modern Girls, which is almost like an inverse of one of these, and this one is just like a strange one because it's a remake. But kids are struggling with sex. They want to get laid. They also want to measure each other's penises in a very strange set piece. One of the strangest ever. But there's also a repeated needle drop, and I love a good like repeated needle drop throughout a movie. And in this, it's Just Once by James Ingram. Especially the lyric interrupting a scene. I did my best, but I guess my best wasn't good enough. Just the way that film floats in and out of its soundtrack, I think really embodies the comfort of a lot of 80s studio movies and even independent movies that were like just crowd pleasers meant to invoke that studio feeling like a lot of those, 80s sex comedies were.
Ishtar too.
Ishtar is one of the funniest movies ever. Came out in the 80s. That's that.
Too many.
That was such a fucking long episode. Let's get out of here. Josh, thank you so much for coming on and talking Snyder Cut. That was awesome. We all know about the Sleazoids, but what do you got to plug otherwise, or just that more?
No, I mean, you guys, we can plug our episode, Eddie. Eddie, by the time you guys are listening to this, it won't be up yet, but by sometime in the coming week, like Friday, Saturday-ish, we're going to have an Eddie episode of Sleazoids coming up where we're going to be talking about Targets from 1968 and Hi Mom, Brian De Palma, 1970. We're going to have a lot of fun. We already did. We already recorded this. I don't know how to.
I was gonna say, come on, you don't have to. I'm sitting right here.
I know
Yes.
I, for one, am very excited to listen to it.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
thought it
me
was a
too.
pretty
And
good
the fun
episode.
you guys
I
are gonna have
thought,
together.
I thought Eddie sounded good on it. You know, he's got a nice voice,
Oh,
and if
thanks.
you want to hear more of it, it's on our show.
If you like Eddie's voice, it's going to be on another show coming
That's
very
right.
soon.
Yeah. I think even before then, though, we're going to beat you to the punch. You're going to hear from us next. I think just like tomorrow probably is the Patreon episode I'll drop. Love on a Diet, the Johnny Toe movie. One of the craziest movies, a beautiful fat suit rom-com. And then our main feed up this week coming on Friday will be with our good friend Marshlands, Eric Marsh, the filmmaker and just general knower of cinema, will be coming on to talk about Car Wash and Jason, Portrait of Serial Killer. Henry Portrait of Jason and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Good movies to get mixed up. Anyway, Car Wash and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
That is an interesting pairing.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either.
All these podcasts coming up. I can't fucking wait.
I can't wait.
I need them now.
Me too. Okay, Josh, good night, buddy. That was so fun. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is finally here, Snyder Cut-Cateers. Man, I'm Kevin Smith, and after all the years of speculation and feverish anticipation, it is my sincere pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to the digital red carpet premiere of Zack Snyder's Justice League, man. All the hype and pizzazz of a major Hollywood premiere with none of the associated limo fees, unless you decided to stream this from inside of a limo, in which case, well played. As you can see, we're broadcasting right here from a spare bedroom in my house.